honored to introduce Nico Ramsey. He is a corporate social responsibility professional and a civil rights activist right here from Austin, Texas. He is doing all of that at the municipal, state, and federal level. He works with Central Texas nonprofits that promote systemic change to break the cycle of poverty, provide access to safe and affordable health care, and for queer and racial justice and equity. He serves on the board of governors for the nation's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization, the Human Rights Campaign, and the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Nico is affiliated through committee work with the City of Austin's Corporate Engagement Council, Zach Theater, Leadership Austin, Vivint Health, and Todos Juntos Learning Center. At United Way, we are lucky enough to have him involved as a member of many things: the Emerging Leaders Executive Committee, the Marketing Committee, Early Matters Greater Austin Steering Committee, and most recently, he is one of our most successful Live United t-shirt models. So another one of my very favorite people, Kristin Marcum, who we get to interview, Nico will be interviewing Kristin today, is the secretary of the United Way board. She also chairs the marketing committee, which instead of Marcum, we all lovingly call Team Marcum. She also serves on the board of the Austin Chamber of Commerce and the Austin Ed Fund. We won't put her on the spot and ask her to comment, but I'm sure United Way is her favorite. She is a strong, compassionate community leader. She's the president of Elizabeth Christian PR and one of the kindest, funniest, most generous, all-around good people I know. So you all are in really, really good hands today. I know you're gonna enjoy this. And thank you again for being with us today. It really means a lot. So Nico, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome, thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with Leaders. Completely agreeing with David here, we're about to talk with President of Elizabeth Christian Public Relations, Kristin Marcum, and couldn't be more thrilled and couldn't reiterate enough that we are in for a treat. I first met Kristin, it was about 2 years ago. Well, actually, I didn't officially meet her just yet, but I first met Kristin, saw her on a stage for a United Way annual meeting. And my gosh, the presence that Kristin brings into a room, the way that she can make you feel right there is something that will make you say first, wow, and I want to be friends with that. And I'm so lucky that I am one of the many people that get to call Kristin Marcum not only a mentor, but a friend, and I am excited to dive right in. So Kristin, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to speak with us. This is it afternoon, morning, afternoon, it's Texas.
Thank you, Nico. I'm so happy to be here to talk with you. And thank you, David. Y'all are two of my favorite people. And for anybody who doesn't know, Nico is one of the foremost experts in town on $5 patio happy hours. So before this event is over, Nico is going to have to share with all of us, because I firmly believe if you're going to give an hour of your time, you should walk away learning something. So I think maybe that's something we could all learn from you today.
Well, let me tell you, if you like martinis, I got you. So anyways, we'll dive right in since I know our time is limited. Kristin, you are the president of Elizabeth Christian Public Relations. Can you tell us what that means to be president of a PR firm and how did you get to where you are?
Sure. Well, 20 years ago, I never would have thought that I would be president of anything, maybe more than my sorority at Texas State University. But I started at this firm. It was a different iteration. There were 3 partners, and I started as an intern when I was at Texas State University. And some of my colleagues from the firm who were actually there at that time are on this call now, so they'll remember this. I was working in what had been a handicap bathroom that they converted into an office for me to give me a little space to clip newspapers. And, you know, I didn't really know where my career was going, but I knew I needed to do a really good job because I had a car payment to make and student loans to pay back. So I just did whatever they asked me to do. I was willing to do whatever it took to get the job done. And I didn't want to make the clients mad, because if the clients got mad, they were going to call my boss. They were going to call Elizabeth, and that wasn't going to be good. Little did I know that in 20 plus years, that would mean that I would be president of the firm, but that's that's kind of how it went. And so the lesson that I took is just, if you're willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done, maybe stay a little longer, work a little harder, the titles, the promotions will come with that. But so what does it mean to be president of a PR firm now? That looks very different than what it looked like a couple years ago, obviously. You know, right now it means working from my bedroom with my kids doing school on the other side of the wall, but it means wearing a lot of hats. It means, number one, that I'm really lucky because I get to work with really wonderful people. I have fantastic clients who are some of my best friends. I get to work with community people like you, but I do a little bit of everything. I do some client service. I do some PR firm management. I do some community work. So it's juggling a lot of things. So if you're someone who maybe gets bored easily and likes to wear a lot of hats, PR is a good field, and being president is certainly a fun thing to get to do.
That's awesome. You know, and as you're talking about this, your tenure in this industry, specifically in the roles that you served within your organization, I'm sure there's like a ton of stories that have that you have been privy to in your life in public relations. So I guess my question would be, are there any stories that stick out, and what did you learn from those experiences that you can share with a Zoom full of young professionals?
Sure. You know, one of my very early, I'm sorry, we only have a limited amount of time. I could share tons of stories, but one of my very earliest stories, and I thought my career in PR was going to be done. So I graduated in May, started working, and I got to do an event, and I was excited. It was a big opportunity. And I find some of the best learning opportunities in your career are when you're really scared out of your mind, right? You think, this is too big for me. They should not have given me this opportunity, but they did. So someone must think I can do this. And I got one of those, and it was a client event. And it was a media outlet that was opening, they were opening a new building, and I was in charge of the event, and they wanted to do it in their parking garage in August. Okay, who am I to say that's a bad idea? We'll make it work, right? We can do. But then at the end of the night, the catering truck backed up into the garage, and there were still guests there. So obviously this is not a great thing to happen, right? You could hear it reversing and it was beeping. Well, the client was very unhappy, to say the least, and she had kind of a hot temper. And so she called me and yelled at me, and I'm softening this, hung up on me, only to call me back and yell at me again. And I remember crying, called my mom, like, Mom, this is really bad news. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to have to move home to Houston. And so I thought my career was done in 3 months, but fortunately it wasn't. And the great lesson there was like, be honest with your boss. I'm very fortunate to work for someone in Elizabeth that always has had my back. Like, I can say, I think I really messed up on this. And so I owned it. I was transparent with her. We figured it out. And that was a great lesson for me, because now I have people that I'm the manager of them. And if they come to me and say like, hey, maybe this could have gone better, I made a mistake, if they're transparent with me, I'll say, let's figure this out together and figure out how we can make this right for the client. So that was an interesting story. There was another time I remember, we used to work with a lot of circuses. I don't know why, we just did. And I had to put on an elephant parade down Congress Avenue. And this is not something they teach you at Texas State. I don't know if they teach it at UT or St. Ed's, but Texas State, we didn't get that class. And apparently you're supposed to get some sort of permit if you're going to march elephants down Congress Avenue. And I did not have the right permit, but I wasn't going to really fess up to this. So I remember I was physically hiding from the city person. I was like, if they can't find me, they can't shut down the elephant parade. But it was one of those, like, I just got it done. And there are some hairy moments sometimes in PR, especially with events, but good lessons learned.
You know, you mentioned elephant parade. The second we get off this Zoom, I'm going to Google, because I'm sure anyway, did not know that. And that is lucky you. I would love to have attended an elephant parade, but maybe one day.
I don't think they do those anymore. I think maybe like they're not that nice to maybe you're not supposed to do that anymore.
Yeah, and as well, I was like, it's a different time, different space.
That's right. It was a different time.
I mean, the amount of times that we say that with everything, right? So anyway, but I guess let's dive a little bit more into like the clients that you've had.
Yeah.
And I know, we always root for our clients. And I know like the big thing in PR is like, for clients to be honest about everything. But in regards to the people that you've worked with, I'm sure that there is a line. Well, I guess if you could tell me, how do you draw the line between a client that's just in a bad situation and a bad client, I guess is what I'm asking.
Mm-hmm. Well, this makes me think, has anyone seen this show that's come out recently on Amazon Prime called Flack, or heard of it? It's a look at the PR industry, and it takes place in the UK, and they make it look very glamorous. And I think that is not the kind of PR that we do. I think they're maybe like covering up murders and things. And we do very kind of corporate PR. And so I will say at Elizabeth Christian PR, we're fortunate. We don't work with a lot of bad people. We get to be pretty selective about the clients that we take. And through the years, we've even had to let go of some clients if we feel like they're not above board. So that's a luxury that we have. I get to feel really good about the clients that we represent. When we have had to let go of clients, it's not so much about them being bad. It's more about, we get to work with people who are nice people. You know, if someone's going to be a client who calls and yells at you on the weekend or just doesn't treat you with kindness, we have the luxury not to work with them. So we're really lucky. We've worked with our clients for some of them, 10, 15 years. And I said, some of them are my best friends, and they really are. Sometimes we have to work with clients to make them see like, oh, it's going to hurt a little bit. But like if you rip off the Band-Aid and you're transparent now, a little bit of pain will be much better in the long run. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I honestly can't say I've worked with a lot of bad people. Do I like some more than others? Sure. But I mean, that's the case with life, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Kristin, knowing you both professionally and personally, the one thing that transcends all of it is how much of a community advocate you are. And so of all the questions that we're asking today, I think this one is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
And it really is to ask the question, why is philanthropy important and the impact that's had on your career? And even talk about like the things that you are involved with outside of Elizabeth Christian and United Way.
Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up, I grew up in Houston. We did not have a lot. I was not from a really wealthy family where we were philanthropic, but my family volunteered. So they gave what they have, and that was time. So I always kind of knew that you could give what you have. But then when I started working in PR in the 90s, one of the things I did early on was I remember building lists for VIP events. So there were people in the community that I looked up to because I would see their name on lists. People like Bobby Jenkins, for example, and I still see their names on lists. And I remember thinking, these are community leaders. These are the people who make it happen. And I remember seeing, okay, why are they where they are? It's because they're giving back to the community and they're shaping the community for the better. And of course, Elizabeth, she's my mentor, but it's almost like I've had like a 20-year long apprenticeship. She's always been big on giving back to the community, whether it's money or her talents. And so it's always just been seeing that that's what you do if you want to succeed. So it's been ingrained in me. That's always something I felt like it would be a privilege to get to do. So there's that. But then also, I think someone said this to me on a panel recently, and it stuck with me. If you're having a stressful day, and I will say this, PR can be very stressful. There's a lot of pressure. You're working with media, they're on deadlines, clients, they can be great, but they can be demanding. If you're having the most stressful day or it's COVID and you're feeling depressed, if you do something for someone else, you're going to feel better. Like I think the greatest antidote to sadness or depression is to help someone else. And that's where philanthropy comes in. I can be having a packed, stressful day and do a United Way board meeting and feel lighter immediately when I hear about the things that United Way is doing, whether it's for kids or families, or if it's for the Austin Ed Fund. So I think that's one of the reasons why for me, philanthropy is so important. But also when I look at the community and I know my kids have it really good, but I think it's incumbent on all of us to help create that opportunity for everybody's kids. So that's why it's important to me. I think your other question was, what impact has it had on my career? Philanthropy has been hugely impactful on my career. I mean, I do it because it feels good, but also I've met some of my best friends, business contacts through the philanthropic work that I do. So it's also been good for professional networking. Like if I'm being candid, doing good can be good for business. And that is something that Bobby Jenkins says a lot. And I do think that's true.
Kristin, I really, really like that you hit on the point of, if we're being completely candid about things, a lot of people, especially in the young professionals realm, they're asking how can they, one, get plugged in, but meet other like-minded people outside of, okay, well, I guess we'll go down to Rainy Street or something, just trying to find ways to, when there's nothing wrong with that, I'll be the first to say, but really just when you invest back in, I think we've had conversation about when you invest back into your community invests back into you like tenfold. And that's like the secret sauce, especially in Austin, I think.
It's so true. And I think Austin is such a welcoming community and such an easy place to get plugged in if you try, if you give a little bit of effort. And I always say, Nico, that's something that I really admire about you. You're so intentional about it. If I had been half that intentional in my 20s, I don't know where I would have been. There was no Rainy Street when I was in my 20s. It was 6th Street. If I had spent maybe half as much time on 6th Street and taken that time and been a little more intentional about community involvement then, it really would have benefited me for years to come. So I admire everybody who's taking time to be on this meeting now, to be involved in Young Leader Society, because that's a really smart use of your time. I mean, maybe cut out one happy hour and use that to go to a committee meeting instead. And I think you'll be glad you did. Or you can do happy hour at the committee meeting, mix them.
There you go. That I was like, it's like your happy hours don't end when you get plugged into these.
That's right. It's both.
Trust and believe they're only beginning. But I want to touch on one more thing. Kristin, your involvement with United Way. I mean, when we talk about champions of seriously championing the cause of United Way, if you could talk to why investing in Austin through United Way is just good for the community. I know you kind of touched on it in the last question, but really on specifically being people on this call to be plugged in with us. What good United Way does for the community basically with this one?
Well, I've spent a lot of time looking at different nonprofits over the years, whether it's for clients or just for myself personally. And United Way, of all the ones I'm involved in, I always say this, I enjoy it the most, I get the most out of it. And it's for a few reasons. Number one, it is the people, because I think you have to feel a great level of confidence and trust in the organizations, whether you're investing time or your money. And I feel really good about the leadership of United Way from David on down. I know they've got the best interest of the community at heart. I love that the organization is very data driven. And I feel like that's how you're going to get a return on your investment, is when they're using actual data. And I feel like, I just feel like the organization is also very nimble. So for example, last year we had a pandemic. United Way was able to quickly make a switch, partner with the Austin Community Foundation to change to meet the changing needs of the community. So I trust the leadership. I like that y'all are data driven. Y'all, like you work for United Way, you're wearing the shirt. Data driven, you're nimble. And I just think United Way takes such a collaborative approach to, and obviously the best swag, like the greatest t-shirts. So how could I say no with these Live United t-shirts, right?
No, 100%. The United Way t-shirts are very top drawer. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's like, oh, gotta go out, wear my Live United shirt.
I agree. Well, I think it's hard because I've read some stats. Austin has more nonprofits than I think a lot of communities do. And a lot of them are doing really great work, but I do think there are some that kind of have a Band-Aid approach. Like, oh, we're going to throw some money and try and fix this one thing here, there. But United Way has a very systemic approach of doing what it does to try and make lasting change. Mm-hmm. So for example, we've got our 2-gen program. So we're not just trying to help the child or just trying to help the parent, but we're trying to help both. So we're making a difference for generations to come. And I think when I say we get a greater return on our investment, it's because of programs like that.
It's interesting because like Kristin, I know you and I both went through Leadership Austin, and their big thing is about how to change systems. And I almost think, that's how I completely look at it too. It's, if I'm going to get involved with something, what I'm looking at is like, how are we going to change the system? Because we can't necessarily change people per se, but we can definitely change the system at which people are involved. And that is something that United Way champions. Part of the reason I know that we're both glad to be involved.
And I do think there are challenges for United Way, right? Because we talk about, oh, your mother's United Way, or I have an aunt who knows I'm involved in United Way, and she says, oh, I was in charge of my company's United Way giving program back in the 80s. And I'm like, yes, it is that, but it's more than that, you know? So I think there are people who think that's all United Way is you give through your company and then they disperse the dollars. And there is still a little bit of that, but United Way has its really great signature programs too. So I think chairing the marketing committee, I'm very aware of some of the communication challenges around what United Way was and the potential for what it still can be.
I agree. All right. Well, Kristin, those are my formal questions. I know we have a little bit more time. I want to ask you a question that's on my mind.
Sure.
Who is the coolest or one of the coolest individuals you've ever met in PR? So it can be at any time.
Okay. So I mentioned the circuses that we worked on. So we got to work with Cirque du Soleil a few times. And I did get to go to their headquarters, but this was even better than their headquarters. They used to come here and there was a contortionist and she was this young woman. Maybe she was from Russia. I don't know. And I had to take her to do an interview in San Antonio. So drove her in my car. I mean, just small talking with someone who's a contortionist for a living. So that was pretty fun. That's one of the things I enjoy, people and learning about their lives and kind of what makes them tick. And so that was a really interesting experience getting to hear about that. And that
Awesome.
was, yeah, I haven't gotten to live anything and close to that since then. And I see Bill Butler is on this meeting too. And I think he works for United Way. And I really enjoyed working with his brothers, the actual Butler brothers, Adam and Marty, for coming up with the branding for Austin FC. So those were some pretty cool people I met also. That was a highlight of my career.
Well, Kristin, we're going to move into a Q&A.
Okay.
So I think what's going to happen is if you guys will submit some questions in the chat, Jennifer will help me moderate it. But the first question we have, I believe, is from Amanda Peck. And she says, Kristin, I would love to hear your thoughts on how we can maintain and continue to foster our community relationships while we are virtual.
So I think things like this, obviously, so you're doing something right by being here. And then in our individual workplaces, I think checking in on each other. I've heard a lot of talk recently about mental health, how it's so important. And you know, we can forget that it can be isolating to be at home. I think for some people, if you're an introvert, it's great and you may never want to leave your bedroom or your house again, but especially for extroverts that get their energy from being around other people, this can be tough. And so while we may not think of it as a community relationship, I do think those one-on-one relationships are important. So checking in on your team members, but also, and I got this tip from my good friend and client, Jeremiah, who's on this meeting. Don't just think about the people who are within your organization. Is there a partner or a vendor who you've worked with for years and maybe you haven't seen them in person? Check on them, give them a call, see how they're doing. You know, a lot of businesses are suffering. It's a stressful time. Those are important community relationships too. And, you know, people you might have seen face to face for a long time. So I'd encourage you to reach out to them also.
Awesome. All right. So we have another one from Ariel Sadler. She says, what are some ways you achieve or maintain work-life harmony?
Okay. Work-life harmony, I think, is different for different people. Working from home has obviously helped that a ton. I don't know about y'all, but I've saved a ton of time not driving on Mopac or driving downtown and parking every day. So when we transition back to regular life, whatever that is, I'll have to think a lot about how I schedule my day. I'm big on getting outside and walking when I can. That helps me clear my mind a lot. And I love to listen to podcasts. I think continuing to learn is really important, but it's also a good way to just clear out the stress of the day. So those are a couple things that I do.
Very nice. Next question comes from Patrick Mercer. Stealing the icebreaker question from earlier. Has Kristin ever been mistaken for someone famous?
I haven't. I don't know what that says about me. I haven't.
You're already famous, so it's like, yes, Kristin Marcum. All right.
Okay.
And anyone, or is it?
You want me to do you want to give me the question? I can see them too.
Oh, sure.
That's a great question. I love this one. What's the best way to get started in boards as a young professional?
Yes.
Okay. I love this one. I think you have to ask for what you want. You can't be afraid to ask for it. And this is another one that a friend of mine and I have talked about. You can't expect people to read what's in your mind. Um, if you want to be involved with an organization, reach out to them, tell them that you'd like to get involved. Know that you can't start right away as an executive board member, but maybe start as a volunteer or committee member and let them know your intention. Say, I'd like to volunteer. Here's the amount of time I can give. And eventually, I'd love to be a member of your board. And here's why I'd make a great board member. I think we expect people to just see us and know what we want. And that's just not how life goes. And there's nothing wrong with asking for it. And I think you'll be amazed that if you ask for what you want, how often you'll actually get it.
Awesome. And another one is what are your favorite podcasts?
Well, obviously, we've got a link here at the top. Austin's only soccer podcast, hosted by my good friend Jeremiah Bentley, which is just launching right around now, in time with Austin FC starting play this year. So that's a great one. So I have to give a plug to that one. I like Brene Brown a lot. I like Rachel Hollis a ton. Those are a couple good ones. And then some other ones that I can't even share because they're just super silly. But if you message me individually, I'm happy to tell you.
All right. Trying to see, I think we went through all. Oh, here's one. What is the best advice you've received from a mentor?
Let me see. Hold on. I've got some notes here. This is a good one. And this applies, I think, to my career, but I think it can apply to any career. When in doubt, err on the side of over communication. And I think this is especially important in our virtual world right now. I think sometimes we can have miscommunications, particularly when we depend on texting so much or emails. So I think it can be good to over communicate, whether it's your intentions or what you want from something. Maybe it's a deadline on a project or what's expected of different parties in a project. So I think over communicating can be very important. Another piece of advice that I've been given, and this goes back to the very beginning when I talked about a mistake that I made or something that happened on a big event. If you make a mistake, own it right away, apologize, kind of explain how it happened, how you'll fix it, how you make sure it doesn't happen again. So that's a piece of advice I've been given. That's something we talk about a lot in PR, but I think it can serve you well, particularly as you're growing in your career. I think we can be so afraid of making mistakes that we don't want to own up to them sometimes. But, we're humans. And so by our very nature, we're going to make mistakes. And the best thing I think we can do is to own them and then learn from them too.
I love that. Our next question, Kristin, comes from Mr. Bill Butler. He says, I know you're involved with Austin FC, Kristin. How do you see their presence in the Austin community shaping our future?
So my firm was really lucky. We got approached in 2018 by this group. I have to give this little backstory because we've got some time and it's funny. They were very kind of cloak and dagger and said, like, we need you to sign 1,000 NDA forms. And so we signed them. We kind of didn't know what was going on. They said, okay, well, how do you feel about Major League Sports in Austin? We were like, that will never happen. The University of Texas would never let that happen. And they were like, well, how do you feel about soccer? And well, my colleagues and I, we love soccer. Like, I've got 2 kids that 2 of my 3 play soccer. Their dad plays soccer. My dad played soccer. Anyway, so we got to work on this campaign before anyone even had a dream that we might have Major League Sports here. And it was a ton of fun and a lot of work. And talk about funny stories. Some of you may have heard this story, but I love to share it because it shows like that you have to be willing to do anything sometimes. I think by this point I was president of the firm, but we were doing the big brand launch of the Austin FC. I think it was the logo, the name. The Butler Bros were definitely involved. And it was in this venue on the east side, and everyone had to enter in through a back alley. And it was kind of divey, but had a very kind of hip vibe about it. But they all had to walk by a garbage dumpster, and it was hot and it smelled so bad. And the event was about to start. And I was like, what can we do about this? So I ended up climbing inside the dumpster because I had to shove all the garbage down so that the lid would close, and it wouldn't close without pushing the garbage down. So I was like, here I am. I think I've made it. I'm the president of this firm. We're bringing Major League Sports to Austin, and I'm climbing in a garbage dumpster. It was just one of those moments where I thought, is this real? But anyway, so fast forward to now, we do have Major League Sports. We have Austin FC. I think it's huge for Austin because we were the biggest city in North America without a Major League Sports team. I think it's just part of the evolution of our city kind of growing up a little bit. I think it's going to be great for the community coming together. It really gives us something to all get behind and root for. Clearly, we were ready for it. When you look at how season sponsorships sold out like they did, the pandemic, I think, is going to play a little role. So I think what I've heard is they may not start play at the stadium until June, but it's still going to happen. But I think it's going to be really exciting. I love to see how our local corporate community has come behind it in terms of sponsorships, and I'm excited to see what's next. Like, could we get a women's soccer team? Could we get another Major League Sports team? I don't know. I hope this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I agree. I'm very excited myself. All right. Well, if there are any further questions, we have some time. Otherwise, I believe, Jennifer, we're going to pass it to Haley, correct?
We're going to pass it to Ariel.
Ariel. All right. So Kristin, thank you for taking the time today to speak with us, to give us your wisdom, to radiate the amount of energy that I have personally witnessed, and some of us on this Zoom have witnessed in real life. And thank you for all that you do for our community and all that you will do. Yeah, just thank you.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you, Nico.
Pleasure.
All right. Thank you again, everyone, for sharing your time with us today. And again, a huge thank you to Kristin and Nico for the amazing discussion. I personally learned a lot today. I don't know if any of them will include jumping into a garbage can anytime soon, but I did learn that being transparent, being intentional, and giving back what I can to my community are huge lessons. Now more than ever, it is important to invest in United Way's work. United Way has been fighting the inequities that COVID-19 has exposed in a bigger way for decades. And instead of striving to get back to normal, let's reimagine what those systems could look like. Let's create better systems that work for everyone. Thank you to those attendees who are already Emerging Leaders members. Your investment allows us to continue this crucial work. And if you are not yet a member of Emerging Leaders and you would like to learn more about how you can get involved, you can email Jennifer Woods at jennifer.woods@uwatx.org. We would love to see you at our next event, an Impact Series event on the new Michael and Susan Dell Foundation grant and subsequent expansion into K-12 work. That event is on Thursday, February 18th at 1 p.m. The link to register is in the chat if you're interested in learning more and registering. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks so much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Kristin.